Suzume, the newest work from Makoto Shinkai, dropped April 14th, 2023 in theaters in the US, and I finally got around to seeing it and have finally gathered my thoughts on it to share them here. I'm sure the first thing that you're wondering is the obvious question, is it good? And I think after sitting on it for a while, I can definitely say it is a movie of all time. This one's a bit complicated for me, and I have mixed feelings, which I will go into detail about now. If you aren't here for that kind of thing, the TLDR of this video is you should still definitely watch Suzume, but temper your expectations as it is not the next Your Name. Now sit back and I'll explain why a wooden chair pulls more women than you. Before I start my analysis of Suzume, let's take a step back and look at the portfolio of Shinkai's movies that I've already seen so I can explain why this is absolutely on par for his style and why this might not capture the general populace in the fashion that Your Name did. Of his movies that I've seen are The Place Promised in Our Early Days, 5 centimeters per second, The Garden of Words, Your Name, and Weathering with You. A theme that features heavily in all of these films is romance and discovering the people destiny has paired you with. I would place this film somewhere on a romance and narrative level between The Place Promised and 5 centimeters, while the animation, art, and sound are identical to that of Your Name and Weathering with You. The plot stands out as a tad confusing if you don't give it 100% of your attention while you're trying to process the more nuanced delivery of some of the plot points, while some important information seems to be omitted altogether about the setting of the story. However, the plot point that I was least on board with was the romance. Luckily, all of my questions were answered after I watched the film. For this movie, a recent interview from Shinkai included the kind of disappointing revelation that his producers wanted to have him follow the same format as his movies did in the past, such as the mega blockbuster Your Name followed, with a boy meets girl story. Shinkai stated, quote, "Personally, I've done that so many times. I pivoted. I wanted to pivot to a more sisterhood type of romantic story, but I had to change that because my producer said, 'You may be tired of these romantic stories, but your audience loves it.' So in order to not make it too much of a romance, I decided to make her primary interest a chair." After watching this movie, it makes a bit more sense that this wasn't his ideal version of the film, and I feel there should be a disclaimer before the movie is watched since my biggest complaint was the romance in this film came out of nowhere. So if you haven't seen it yet, I guess this is your disclaimer. As a member of Shinkai's audience, I would have definitely enjoyed the movie more if the producers hadn't shoehorned their opinions into the film as the story, romance aside, was gripping and interesting. In the film itself, Suzume discovers a lone door which she opens to see a different world from her own, though unable to enter it. Unbeknownst to her, these doors release destruction upon the land and need to be closed and locked by a special person known as a closer. She releases a guardian of the doors, and that spirit turns the closer, Sota, that she met, into a chair from her childhood. They end up chasing this spirit, who is a cat, halfway across the country in order to return everything to normal. Along the way, Suzume meets many helpful people and tries to discover the significance behind this chair and who she is by confronting herself from the past. Like all of Shinkai's recent movies, this film is animated beautifully and has the wonderful soundtrack once again provided by Radwimps. These two mainstays keep the production value extremely high and meet the expectations of the viewers, and I have no qualms in these areas. The issue remains in the story department, where I have been lost through some of these films before, especially in The Place Promised in Our Early Days, with some of the elements left unexplained, and it seems like a lot of plot points come out of nowhere. In Suzume specifically, I think there could have been a little more explanation about the closers out of Sota's grandfather in a way that was similar to the shrine visit in Weathering with You. I will say that if you did not understand the plot of Your Name, then you probably won't be a fan of Suzume either, but it still is definitely worth the watch. Looking back at the movie as a whole, I can kind of appreciate it more now that I know Shinkai was forced away from the actual version of the film he wanted, and that's why a chair is the one the girl falls for. Overall, the story around Suzume is the main focus, and the film and the story itself is mostly well written, and without having the expectations of being the next Your Name, this movie is very good. The supernatural elements tied into the story and the mesh of Your Name and Weathering with You styles signs this film with Shinkai's seal. I really do hope next time he can branch out and make something that he has complete creative control over and can deliver once again, because his films, to me, have always been a treat. I finally settled on an 8 out of 10 as a rating, which I hope will be compelling enough for you to give this film a go. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments, and if I should talk about more anime films going forward. I recently watched the pair of movies, To Every You I've Loved Before and To Me, The One Who Loved You, which should be watched back to back in any order of your choosing and leads to a different understanding of the story depending on which one you watched first. I'm still plowing through the plethora of anime airing this spring season, so expect that video in June. That's all from me for now. Watch more anime, and I'll catch you later.